Summary of The Princess Bride by William Goldman. The author, William Goldman, suffers from pneumonia when he is 10 years old. Illness strikes him. He stays in the hospital for 10 days. When he gets home, Goldman's father, who is from Florence, starts reading him The Princess Bride, a famous Florence adventure story by S. Morgenstern. He promises to read The Princess Bride to his own son when he gets one. Goldman is interested in the story. Goldman's son Jason is overweight and doesn't have a sense of humor, which is a bad thing. Goldman's wife Helen tells him that it's Jason's birthday while he's in California working on the screenplay for the Stepford Wives. Goldman then spends 2 hours and several $100s on the phone to get Jason a copy of The Princess Bride. And Goldman finds out that Jason could only read the first chapter when he gets home. Goldman is upset about this because he remembers the book as being very interesting. He figures out what's wrong when he opens Jason's copy to read the story again. S. Morgenstern's book is 1,000 pages of humorous court history set in Florence, but Goldman's dad only read him the interesting parts. The story that follows starts with Goldman calling around to get permission to cut down Morgenstern's classic. He took out almost 700 pages of case history and only kept the good parts. The story is about Buttercup, a very pretty milkmaid from Florina. Buttercup doesn't care about how pretty she is. She would rather ride her horse and tell the farm boy Wesley what to do. More and more men notice how beautiful she is as she ages. One day, Count Ruggin and his wife, the Countess, stop by the farm. Buttercup sees that the Countess seems interested in Wesley while they are there. By the evening, Buttercup is very envious, and the next morning, she tells Wesley she loves him. Though he slams his door in her face, he comes that night to say goodbye. He's leaving for America to try to make it big so that they can live together happily. Morgenstern says that the kiss they shared before they parted is the best kiss ever. While Wesley is away, Buttercup starts to take care of her looks. But soon after he leaves, she hears that the dread pirate Roberts attacked Wesley's ship and has killed him. Since Buttercup lost Wesley, she is the most beautiful woman in the world. At the same time, Prince Humperdinck is upset to learn that he has to get married in order to become king because his father, King Lotheron, is sick. It bothers Humperdinck a lot to be away from his favorite place to hunt, the Zoo of Death, where animals live for him to kill. Humperdinck meets Buttercup after Count Ruggin fails in his attempts to court Princess Nerina of Gilder, a nearby country. Buttercup agrees to marry Humperdinck, but she says she can't love him. She goes to princess school for 3 years. But about 100 days before her wedding, 3 thieves, Vizzini, a Sicilian hunchback, Fezzik, a Turkish giant, and Inigo, a Spanish swordsman, catch her on her daily ride. The people who have taken Buttercup see a man in black following them as they get to the cliffs of insanity. Vizzini found this inconceivable. As Vizzini, Inigo, and Buttercup start to climb the cliffs with Fezzik on a rope, they tie themselves to him. Vixio forces Fezzik to move faster, which is important because a man in black is now climbing up after them. Vizzini finally makes up his mind to leave Inigo to deal with the man in black and keep going with Fezzik and Buttercup. Morgenstern tells us a little about Inigo's past. When he was a child, a 6-fingered gentleman killed his father, Domingo Montoya, and Inigo has spent his whole life trying to find and kill this man. He's a fencing wizard, and Vizzini kept him from being a drunk. The men fight when the man in black gets to the top of the rocks. The black guy wins, knocks out Inigo, and then goes after Vizzini. He then leaves Fezzik behind to hit the man in black with a rock. As a kid, Fezzik's parents taught him how to fight, even though he hates it and prefers rhymes. He really doesn't like being by himself, so he'll do what Vizzini tells him to do. This is a fair fight between Fezzik and the man in black. The man in black wins. After a while, the man in black shows up and dares Vizzini to a battle of mind. He poisons one wine goblet with iocane powder and tells Vizzini to pick the other goblet that isn't poisoned. Vizzini lies, but he still dies. The man in black says he can't be hurt by the poison and that both goblets were poisoned. For hours, the man pulls Buttercup by the hair through the woods until they reach the top of a gorge. They fight there and then realize Humperdinck is after them. When Buttercup pushes the man down into the ravine, she learns that he is Westley. She falls down after him. Goldman then says that Morgenstern did not write a reunion scene between the lovers at the bottom of the ravine. Since this is abridged, Goldman's editors wouldn't let him write his own and include it. However, if a fan writes to the publishing house, Goldman's editors will send them Goldman's reunion scene. Hunter like Humperdinck follows Westley, Buttercup, and Vizzini's group all the way to the top of the canyon. There, he sees that Westley and Buttercup are heading straight for the dangerous fire swamp. Westley tells Buttercup that he's still living to take her mind off of how scary the fire swamp is. He is now known as the Dread Pirate Roberts. Over the years, many men have played Roberts to cash in on the name. Buttercup gets stuck in snow sand, and Rouses, rats and mice of odd size, attack Westley. But they get out of the fire swamp. They are already met by Humperdinck and Ruggin on the other side. Buttercup asks Humperdinck to free Westley in exchange for her promise to marry him. Even though he says yes, he asks Ruggin in secret to put Westley in the 5th level of his zoo of death. While this is going on, Inigo goes back to the thieves' quarter in Florence City. Fezzik gets scared and forgets what he needs to do. As the 90 days of wedding celebrations start, Buttercup starts having bad dreams and decides she can't marry Humperdinck. He says he will send 4 ships to find Roberts's ship and see if Westley will come back for her. He lets the reader know that he's not going to do it because he wants to kill Buttercup and blame Gilder for it, so he has a reason to start a war. Once the albino caretaker heals Westley, Humperdinck and Count Ruggin torture him in the Zoo of Death using the information Buttercup gives them. He knows how to take his mind away, so the beatings don't hurt him. When Ruggin starts to use his machine on Westley, this changes. The machine is silly, but it takes years off of Westley's life very slowly. A few days before the wedding, Humperdinck tells Yellen, who is in charge of all law enforcement, to clean up the thieves' quarter so that Gilderian spies can't attack Buttercup. Fezzik is part of Yellen's brute squad. As the brutes catch the last criminal, Fezzik finds Inigo resisting to be arrested because he is drunk. Fezzik wakes Inigo up and tells him that Vizzini is dead and that he found the man with 6 fingers. It's Count Ruggin. He thinks Westley is smart enough to plan the attack on Count Ruggin, and since he knows Ruggin and Humperdinck, he thinks they are probably abusing Westley. They hear a scream of ultimate suffering right now. It's Westley. When Humperdinck was mad at Buttercup, he used Ruggin's machine to kill Westley. The albino comes out of the Zoo of Death to find a wheelbarrow to move Westley's body. Inigo and Fezzik knock him out and start going down through the zoo's floors. It's a very scary event. When Inigo finds Westley dead, he is sad, but he and Fezzik take Westley to buy a miracle from Miracle Max, who used to be King Lotheron's Miracle Man. Max tries to say no to the job, but when he learns that bringing Westley back to life will make Humperdinck look bad, he agrees to do it. Westley slowly starts to come back to life after being given the revival pill. He, Inigo, and Fezzik attack the castle at the same time that Humperdinck and Buttercup get married in a small party. Count Ruggin is being chased by Inigo, who cuts out his heart. Westley stops Buttercup from committing suicide and tricks Humperdinck into putting down his sword. Fezzik shows up outside on 4 white horses, and the heroes ride them away. Goldman says that's where his father left the story, but Morgenstern writes that as soon as the heroes run away, things go badly, and Humperdinck starts to chase them. That's the end of Goldman's book The Princess Bride. Goldman talks about how he made The Princess Bride into a movie and how good he was at it in both the introduction to Morgenstern's follow-up book, Buttercup's Baby, and the introduction to the 30th anniversary edition. But when Goldman's grandson Willie, who is about 7 years old, asks him to read him Buttercup's Baby, he finds out that the movie was almost too popular. The Morgenstern estate wants Stephen King to shorten Buttercup's Baby because of all the lawsuits they have been filing and because the movie did better than Goldman's version. King finally agrees to let Goldman cut down the first chapter of Buttercup's baby as long as Goldman promises to do good research at the Morgenstern Museum in Florin. At the beginning of Buttercup's baby, Fezzik is following a crazy man without any skin who has Buttercup's baby daughter Waverly. After the crazy person throws the baby, he jumps off a cliff. Goldman doesn't like how this story starts and can't fix it because it's abridged. You can find the unexplained Inigo fragment in the second part of the first chapter. It takes place 10 years ago, when Inigo was studying in Italy and fell in love with a young countess. It has nothing to do with the story. After that, the story jumps to the end of The Princess Bride. It goes over everything that goes wrong with the hero's escape and how Westley gets his friends through a dangerous storm to One Tree Island, which is away from everything else. They get better there, and Buttercup gets pregnant. Fezzik has a C-section after 50 hours of labor because something invades his thoughts. He jumps off the cliff after Waverly because they become best friends. Then Goldman thanks the reader for going on this journey with him and being so interested in the story. He wants Morgenstern to give the heroes a good end.
About the author. Goldman born and grew up in Chicago. When Goldman was very young, his father was a successful businessman. However, because of his drinking, he lost his company and killed himself when Goldman was in high school. Goldman went to Oberlin College and was drafted into the Army soon after college. After being let go, he went to Columbia University and got his Master of Arts. Goldman took writing classes and edited his school's literary magazine while he was in college, but even his own magazine wouldn't print the writing he sent in anonymously. Goldman wrote his first book, The Temple of Gold, after helping his brother and roommate with a few musical plays. That book was the start of his big career. He wrote books, plays, and scripts. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was his most famous work, and it won him an Oscar in 1969 for Best Original Screenplay. Goldman was very critical of the movie business, and he wrote a number of articles and autobiographies about his time working in it. As he says in The Princess Bride, he bought back his own script when no one would give it the go-ahead after the book came out, and he had a lot to do with casting and filming. Goldman died in 2018.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.